Today with me on Above the Tree Line, I am super excited to have with me an old friend and industry colleague, Duff Johnson, who is the CEO of the PDF Association. So Duff, welcome.
Thank you.
So Duff, I think you and I first met, it was probably around, I'm going to guess 95?
Exactly so. I have a very clear memory of it. Actually, I remember the screen that I was looking at when I first saw a PDF file, thanks to you.
Yeah, and you went, holy cow, this is crazy. So, I always tell people, I said, hey, I'm the guy that introduced Duff Johnson to PDF. You're welcome, world, in Adobe. Or maybe not, depending on your perspective.
Yeah, no.
I know you had a really busy month in Germany with multiple events. What's the latest with PDF? What came out of the events in September? What's the state of the PDF market right now?
It has been incredibly hard to answer that question for a long time. We looked at kind of like bank shot metrics to try and figure this out. We can look, for example, at Common Crawl data, and we see that PDF is the second most popular format on the web. We can look at Google Trends data, which tells us that the trend line for searches that include PDF keeps going up over time. That is to say, relative to all searches. Right. Now, in principle, that means PDF's mind share continues to go up relative to all searches. But maybe it's a story about Google losing AI search to chatbots. We don't know. We also don't know whether chatbots are prioritizing any content based upon how they find it. For example, they think in terms of PDF files on a website is somehow more or less significant than other content. Yeah. One of the interesting things is, what is the modern world doing in terms of consuming PDF for AI purposes? But yeah, it's been really hard to come to grips with, precisely because PDF is a near invisible, at this point, infrastructure technology. Mm-hmm. Everybody presumes it exists. Everybody leverages it when they...
Well, I was thinking even in the consumer vernacular, right? I mean, you hear it on TV shows, hey, I'm going to send you a PDF. I mean, it's part of the culture now, right? I mean, it is. People accept PDFs for what they are, right?
It's digital paper to the vast majority of users, and it's embraced that role. It's fully capable in that role. It has the relevant characteristics, the fundamental flexibility in terms of the ability to edit it, redact it, and to annotate it. So PDF as a shareable format has a lot of characteristics that parallel the characteristics, as it were, of paper. And the modern era hasn't eliminated the need for these characteristics. The need, in analogous terms, remains.
Yeah.
It's very important to people, for example, that a contract look identical, even if a piece of software could assure them that the words are identical. It's very interesting if the formatting changed, because I signed that one, right? There are innumerable aspects of modern business where PDF files show up everywhere, from like printing packaging labels to, DocuSign, signing systems. There are innumerable places for PDF in this market.
It's really a data container file type that you can...
Yes, it's a page description system that has the ability to contain data of various types. And a developer once described PDF to me as a free-form database, which turns out has a lot of very useful views that people tend to consider it by those views. So, okay, that's a pretty abstract perspective on it. But yeah, it's enormously flexible. You can create a PDF from any print stream. So any application can make a PDF with high fidelity. And that's something that when you look around, it's very hard to think of other systems that can really provide the assurance of universal source to PDF is a real thing. And it always has been.
Yeah.
And there's something quite amazing about that.
I remember back when you and I first met, and PDF, Acrobat is what they called it then, right? Adobe Acrobat was relatively new, and I think Adobe was actually struggling with it, in the early couple of versions, 3 or 4 versions of it. And you and I played a big role in helping Adobe get Acrobat and PDF established, even on the global stage, right? In terms of coming more from a document management perspective, perhaps, than print at that point. But you could see sort of the possibilities of where PDF was going based on when I was selling all those different integration tools and technology, they were just going in so many different directions.
Yeah.
that's part of the beauty of PDF. It's also, in some ways we sort of created a monster too, right? Because you can do so many things with it. You can put so many stuff, and there's so many ways to author a PDF that it's become this catch-22, I think, at least for a lot of the companies I work with, which are in the customer communications, print space, where it's like, not all PDFs are created equal. And that has been traumatic for a lot of people to sort of figure that out. I assume your organization is doing everything it can to bring people together in alignment in terms of how we should be able to display these, whether it's through Acrobat or through, a browser or whatever it is. So you had these events. I think you said you had 3 events in September, and
Yes.
each one sort of represented a different group of PDF professionals that play different roles.
That's right.
Tell us a little bit about those.
Yeah, so September, it was pretty unusual for us. We don't often do these in-person events and say, hey, just show up and this is something you should participate in. The first event was at the PDF workshop, and this was led by our CTO, Peter Wyatt, who's the project leader of the PDF specification. He offered a workshop spending 2 days discussing all of the various industry-based resources and assets that are available to developers who are either in the PDF space or tangentially related to the PDF space. So there's relatively few developers on the planet who want to get into the guts of PDF. There are plenty of developers who are like, I'd quite like to ingest that PDF.
Right.
Or I'd quite like to, to modify PDFs in a certain kind of a way, but no, I don't want to know the whole story. I want to get to where I'm going. I've got a job to do. So that's the workshops are really a way to help accelerate developers' ability to engage PDF and also to understand, the wealth that 32 years of best practices and industry wisdom have kind of evolved. And Peter is as much of an oracle.
Oh, yeah, I know his name is right. I mean, he's been a part of this for a long, long time.
Oh, way far more.
Wasn't Peter part of Adobe when it was originally developed? I can't remember. It's a little fuzzy to me, but
Peter's
was a long time ago.
Is it canon in this regard?
Okay. Yeah, that's right. Canon. Okay. Yeah. Very good.
But he's been heavily involved in the PDF space for 25 years.
So the workshops, I remember somebody, I don't remember who it was, described PDF files as a roach hotel. Bugs go in, data goes in, but data doesn't come out. I think that's always been a little bit of the challenge, but clearly that has evolved, right? I mean, PDF is now the standard interchange format for everything, right? If you're using Illustrator or other tools, it's, PDF in, PDF out. So those things have been solved. Today, though, we're probably talking less about using these in design tools and more about what an AI engine can get its hands around, right? What it can read, what it can understand.
And yet the same story once again.
Oh.
Because on the one hand, we have PDF itself, okay? PDF is as specified, the format, the definition, encompasses an enormous variety of features that enable the encoding of semantics into the document, that enable the possibility of attaching data payloads and then recording the semantic relationships between these payloads and the contents of the PDF file. A modern PDF can include MathML as a first-class citizen right directly in the PDF file, making it consumable by downstream applications and so on. So the world of PDF is as rich as implementations care to support. The history that we're seeing is a very, very long tail. Tag PDF is a great example. It was introduced into PDF back in 2001 when Adobe owned the specification. They released a version of Acrobat that included support for Tag PDF. That's how the world came to know this feature existed. Because this is PDF, they published the specification for this feature, and it became possible for third parties to create PDFs that supported it and to read PDFs and handle PDFs. So 25 years later, Tag PDF is a much better evolved specification. It's now supported by all major desktop software producers. And in recent data shared at PDF Days, I should come back to that. It was
we got more to cover.
Yeah, Tag PDF is now 50% of new PDF files being created are tagged PDF files. So there's, on the other hand, consumer support for Tag PDF, including even with AI engines, is so far as we can tell, really not there yet. So there's a mismatch between what's possible with PDF and the way people use it. But I should return to your question. The PDF workshop was an educational event for developers, right? And it was a 2-day thing that happened the week before PDF Days.
And is anyone able to go to that?
We post events, we charge a fee. The hotel costs us money if anybody's interested. PDF Association is a nonprofit organization. It has a small staff and these events tend to be fairly expensive. So yes, there is a fee to attend these things.
And it's in Berlin. These are all in Germany, right? In Berlin?
They were, yes. In principle, there's no location specific for these things. Well, we actually call it The next second event of the three was PDF Days Europe 2025. PDF Days is we have a long history of these events going back to about 2010. They used to be annual. More recently, they've been less. So that kind of started with COVID. 2025 was the first PDF Days in 3 years. Great time was had by all. We had 2 great keynotes, one focused on AI, the other on accessibility. We had new poster sessions. PDF Days is an event not only for industry folk, but also for what we would call stakeholders in PDF.
Okay.
So we find representatives of government agencies showing up. We find other third parties who have professors and people who manage policy for major institutions.
Right.
Find these considerations interesting. Archiving is a big focus for institutions, and they, one of the things, their abiding concerns for the entire digital era is how do they go about archiving all the content that people throw at them. PDF is obviously a big part of that discussion, and that's why they show up at these events. So PDF Days was a 2-day public event for anybody to come along and watch presentations, to attend the poster sessions, technical posters, to get a briefing on our work groups. There are about 20 different working groups in the PDF Association, find out what they're doing. So it was a way to learn about the PDF Association without really more of a commitment than hanging out with a bunch of PDF people for 2 days in a hotel in Berlin.
All right. Sounds like a great time.
It was actually. And so far we've had really good reviews from it. The third event was PDF Week. And in this case, it was a truncated PDF Week. But PDF Week is twice a year in person and commonly once a year also online, which fundamentally focuses on a meeting of the people who develop specifications and standards for PDF.
Okay.
So the more engaged technical working group and liaison working group members will get together in person, be that in Tokyo or in Paris or Berlin or in other places to have an in-person meeting. It's actually a hybrid meeting. Any PDF Association member can attend, can dial into it, but those in person are, of course, in person. There, we advance the work of these various technical working groups to develop additional resources, new specifications, answer questions about or resolve ambiguities in the course specification, things of this nature. Yeah. We also combine in PDF Week the various meetings of the ISO working groups that are affiliated with, that are part of TC 171 SC2, that's the component of the ISO, the International Standards Organization, that publishes the ISO standards for PDF. The PDF Association administers that particular subcommittee for ISO, and so we integrate its meetings with PDF Association meetings because the experts are mostly the same people.
Thank you for sort of delineating those 3 different events, because I saw that I was like, oh my gosh, Duff's going to have a crazy month of PDF stuff. And that's just a lot to absorb, but really critically important. And each, I can see now how each event sort of has a different, like we said, sort of eats at a different piece of the elephant, right? In terms of what's going on with PDF.
Yeah, the first one is for developers, the workshop. The PDF Days is for the people, stakeholders in PDF. And PDF Week is for those who develop PDF.
Right. No
way to break it down.
Very clear. Thank you. That's great. So one of the things that I think people are hearing a lot about, and we touched on this earlier, is accessibility. And that has been a long, long road. Where are we with accessibility? I mean, it seems like we're, like you said, I think you said 50% of PDF files now are being tagged. I don't know if that means they're being appropriately tagged to be accessible in meeting standards, but where are we with that? I mean, in terms of, going forward, but then we've got the whole remediation question too, right? Where companies are literally sitting on billions and billions of PDF files that are not accessible or partially accessible or don't meet a standard. That in and of itself just makes my brain hurt. So where are we with accessibility? I mean, I know Europe has really mandated it. So if you put a PDF out there, it's got to be accessible.
Yeah, that's right. So there are indeed, there are standards for accessible PDF. I have been deeply involved in this, and since 2004, when I started working on PDF UA, which
Right.
is now an ISO standard, has been since 2012. And PDF UA 2 has recently been published, which is a major upgrade, and it's based on PDF 2.0, which was released in 2020. So accessible PDF is far more in reach today than it ever has been. The software, the tools, first of all, the created PDF files, a lot of files can happen that are accessible. The accessibility limitation with respect to freshly created files are now a function of whether or not authors are correctly using valid structures when they're creating documents.
Right.
Are they using the heading styles? Are they using tables sensibly? Do they ensure distinction? Do they discriminate between lists and headings, for example? Or do they add alternative text? Do they use validation software? These are the points that limit the creation of accessible PDF files today, and they're nothing to do with PDF. They're really having to do with whether or not organization policy is sort of requiring users to have these skills and to push the right buttons on the software that they already have.
Yeah. Okay.
So
there's a ton of automation there now. It's just whether you choose to adopt it or leverage it, or like you said, have the appropriate policies and structure in place to derive a appropriately tagged PDF file.
Then there's the subject of, as you pointed out, the legacy files, which need to be remediated, and obviously new files also may need remediation if they're complex or created by software that doesn't understand tagged PDF. But yes, the legacy files will require remediation as they're used, certainly. And in that domain, the tools are certainly improving, and I think there's a lot of hope as well that AI will be of some assistance, not a full solution for that, but definitely a great deal of assistance, because AI offers significant promise for it, in theory, for studying a document, coming to some conclusions about how it should be structured, and then offering that conclusion to a human to validate. And if validated, then tag that file and say, yeah, you're done.
Service bureau business that you and I were in a long, long time ago.
Yes.
Your eyeballs on it to make sure it's right.
I do tend to look at things from a service perspective, but one can't deny when the software is going to come along, as we used to say back in the service bureau days, and eat our lunch. You have to figure out how to get it.
Yeah. Well, I'm curious about accessibility, because one of the thoughts that I've always had about it is, okay, so you have a valid, pick the standard, accessible tag PDF file. That content is basically universally reusable, right? Just because it can be displayed on a page doesn't mean it has to be, right? That data could be pulled out and just be displayed.
That's right.
So in that sense, it's a legitimate sort of data archive container that would allow, and I guess what I'm trying to say is, when people think about accessible files, they're thinking about them being accessible to a human. They're thinking about them being available to somebody that has a disability, visual, hearing, whatever it is. I'm thinking about accessible from a machine perspective that says, hey, there's information in here that I can extract and I can repurpose over here and do something different with it. Is that a valid perspective? I'm just curious as an expert what your thoughts are.
One of the things we've noticed is that we scan anyway, and Peter reads much of the academic literature and the research publications pertaining to AI ingestion of, you might have guessed it, PDF files. And we find many researchers are focusing on the particulars of how they go about understanding the content in PDF files, very much from the perspective of let's study the layout, let's scrape the text, let's put these things together in novel ways, let's contrast their different performance of various LLMs with these various results and draw conclusions. And in almost none of these cases so far have we seen them talk about handling the PDF as a PDF. So one of my questions for these researchers is, PDF files can have annotations, right? They can have comments on them. Everybody's seen the little pop-up notes that could be in a PDF. If you're simply scraping the page for text that's on the page, you're not ingesting the annotations. So on what basis could you even in principle tell me that file was appropriately ingested if you're not handling it as a PDF, not handling all of it, not handling the fact that maybe examining its metadata, or there's so many qualities of the PDF, from the page content to the semantics that may be present in the structure tree. So obviously imaging effectively. But tearing apart a PDF from a kind of layout point of view in order to understand it would be entirely appropriate if we're looking at a scanned page, or if
Right.
we're looking at a PDF that doesn't have any structure.
Right.
But given that so many PDF files today are structured, then it would seem sensible that to pay some attention to that information, or at least leverage that information, either in a reading or writing context. But we don't see too much interest in that so far. And that, I think, is so. I think, to answer your question, there are absolutely a variety of ways in which the extraction of content for machine purposes makes a great deal of sense. And in fact, there's a publication, the Deriving HTML from PDF, pertains to this, the PDF Reuse Technical Working Group. The PDF Association is deeply focused on this subject. We do see downstream applications for this and uses of this.
Right.
But as far as, ingestion for AI purposes, this is an area that I'm looking forward to seeing more progress in.
And I guess I was coming at it more from the, to use the CCM, customer communication term, customer experience perspective, right? What you as a user, and I got a PDF file on my mobile device. So rather than being presented, say, as the image, it's manipulating the data and displaying the data as necessary, as opposed to having to fiddle around with the actual PDF.
Yeah. So that an appropriately tagged PDF file should be readily resolvable to something appropriate to what's going to work better on your favorite mobile device.
Right.
The question is whether you're going to derive that tagged content into something that you're prepared to use, which might very well be HTML.
Right.
Well, we published, the PDF Association, a document that supports that exact use case. It's the specification for deriving HTML from PDF, published by that particular technical working group, free for download. And what I would say to folks in this industry who are looking to improve that option is that once they understand what PDF can do and the information it can contain and the results that are available from properly configured and structured information, then that's something they can go to their vendors with and say, hey, I know the PDF can do this, so let's start doing it.
Right.
Why can my email include a link to view this statement?
And as a consumer, you're sort of like, I don't care. I mean, it's, just make it easy for me, right?
Yes.
I wanted to read you something because, there is a little bit of we'll call it anti-PDF sentiment growing out there for whatever reasons.
Well, for decades.
Well, I know. It's like we created a little bit of a Frankenstein, right? And you guys have done a great job of keeping the pieces together. But I want to read you something here that just to react to this statement. So this gentleman was comparing PDF files to toilet paper. So we'll just start there. And he says,
PDFs
PDFs are the one ply of the documents of the business world. They technically get the job done, but they're clunky, static, and frustrating on mobile. If vendors would actually utilize the capabilities of what's actually out there from a technical perspective.
So what he's describing is not PDF. What he's describing is the state of current implementations of PDF. Okay, the first and most significant thing to say is if you're curious about whether PDF could do a better job here, ask your vendor. The more vendors hear that question, you can leverage resources published by the PDF Association to enable you to get your vendors to answer these questions. We publish a tremendous amount of information that is intended to educate stakeholders on what is possible with PDF,
right,
and to give them the tools that they need to ask very specific questions of developers and of product managers, and ultimately of viewer manufacturers and other kinds of creator manufacturers and validator developers and the rest of the ecosystem.
Right.
Because the more PDF works when everybody's on the same page. Now, back to the toilet paper analogy, I've actually used a similar analogy myself. I point out that, there is a certain analogy between PDF and toilet paper. Well, number one, it's the thing that nobody likes to talk about.
Right.
It's incredibly uninteresting to the vast majority of people. After all, everybody wants a toilet paper roll to fit on a holder.
Right.
But most importantly, just try and live without it.
Yeah. Good point. No, you're right on. That's great.
I mean, at the end of the day, a reliable, secure, shareable digital document is fundamental in so many workflows It's very hard to imagine. There are businesses that don't need this, that fit in various niches where all their structures can be held in databases, for example.
Mm-hmm.
But even for these businesses, they need to have relationships with offline entities. They need to be able to transact, usually if they get to some degree of scale, with entities where they're not going to be able to channel everything into this, particular world. And PDF fills all those gaps. And so it's something that nobody likes to think about, perhaps. It's hard to live without.
Yeah, well, I think, at least in my view, I think part of it is, we're moving into a world in customer communications where things are real time, interactive, right? They're adaptable to based on whatever device you're using. And I think when they think PDF, they're like, oh, I'm talking about print, right? I'm talking about a document, talking about paper. And that's where I think the customer communication industry just goes. And it's like, if you mention PDF, you're talking about archiving or attaching a link to an email or printing, right? That's kind of the scope of the view of what PDF can do. And I think that's where people get tripped up, not realizing that there is all of this capability under the hood that's underutilized in many ways.
Honestly, I don't think it's the capability is part of what they're missing. But what they're really missing when they're thinking of it as strictly a print capability is the necessary flexibility that a small proportion of their users will absolutely require at various times. So, for example, if you provided all your documents using an HTML statement, right? They just show up as a, and this is why nobody does this,
right?
Why everybody has a PDF statement is because everybody knows it has to be shared offline. I have to be able to send that to my accountant. And if you just give me an HTML page, you put me in the position where either that page has to persist so in a way that where I can share it with the accountant, that's going to be hard to do, or you're forcing me to capture it to something, probably a PDF, but now that thing won't look like the statement, and it may or may not have some sort of authentic connection to it. It may or may not be good enough for audit purposes.
Yeah.
Right. So as it turns out, if you think about that, print is the full description of what people actually care about when they get a PDF. You're missing it. Mm-hmm. They care about that PDF anytime they talk. No, print is a description of a function. It's not what they're thinking about. They're thinking about sharing it with the accountant, answering the auditor, redacting some information from it, before they share it. There's no printer involved with that necessarily.
Right. It's the bounded, the page, the information on a page, it's that going back to where we started, right? It's the way to describe, print a page to the screen. In fact, I think we actually called it display PostScript, right? I mean, that's what it was originally, how it was described. That's really interesting.
Yeah, it represents a collection of properties that are far more than the ability to print, actually in the mind of the user.
Right.
The ability to save, the ability to share, the ability to protect myself because I can share some of this information with you, but not all of it. The ability to remain authentic, the ability to get you to believe that this thing is real. So
this is where educating the market, educating vendors is continuing an ongoing process of, hey, these are things that we can do, that consumers can do with PDF files. But again, I think a lot of people just sort of gloss over it, right? They hit the print button or whatever.
If it's just digital toilet paper, then you won't pay enough attention to realize why people actually care about it.
Mm-hmm. No, you're right. So I would be remiss if we didn't talk about AI. I mean, every conversation with everybody has to include a conversation about artificial intelligence. But, what's your view on it? And I guess specifically, what is the role of standards going to be in the evolution of AI? Do we need standards anymore? I was listening to a podcast where they were talking about various standards, and it made me think, do we even need them in the age of AI? Can we just train AI to say, go figure that thing out? Give me the data I'm looking for, Mr. AI engine or Mrs. AI engine?
Well, we need standards because we need different implementations to understand each other. PDF's entire value proposition arises because a person creating a PDF file can make an extremely sophisticated document and they can share it with somebody having no idea of what software that person has. And they can have total confidence that that third party can open the thing up and it looks exactly as the author intended. And that arises because a lot of different people have spent a lot of time poring over the exact same words in a specification or a standards document and going, okay, it means that do this when this, and so on and so on, iterated for thousands and thousands of decisions or more.
Right.
So standards are just kind of intrinsic to the whole proposition of kind of computers talking to each other at all, frankly, right? Whether AI, the developers who create these things and who decide what to feed them, it can make all kinds of different choices about what they do. Take PDF ingestion as one recent example that was talked about a lot at PDF Days recently.
Right.
So one of the things everybody knows about AI is that it costs a lot of energy to run the stuff. And the more you make it work, the more you make it think, whatever it's doing, more energy, right? So several ways to approach a PDF document that you want to ingest. One of them is to open it up and then to go ahead and try and figure out all the zones of text and images on it and kind of scratch them out of there and compare them to library models and develop an internal model of the document based upon this analysis and scrape the text and do it the hard way. Lots of compute energy before we even start analyzing the text.
Yeah, you're just
right. We could have opened the document, we rendered it, that was the same amount of energy, and then we simply read the text out of it following the tag structure.
Right.
And then we get the semantics of the tags and the alternative text for the images. So we didn't have to ask the AI to go figure that out necessarily. That becomes an option instead of the only way to do it. So result is prospectively much more accurate extraction of content at a far reduced compute cost.
Yeah.
So I'm waiting to see AI industry decide that it will take more interest from, as far as I can tell. I mean, as I say, we don't perhaps see all the research results, but where is that analysis that incorporates reading the PDF for a PDF as opposed to kind of treating it as an overcomplicated image?
Yeah. So in the realm of AI and PDF, and what is the thinking? Is it going to be now around things like managing copyright? Let's just forget about AI ingesting PDF. What is now AI going to mean to the creation of PDF and how we move forward in terms of content and ownership?
There are many options
over what you put into that document.
Yeah, well, there are many options, including on consumption. We just reported in our monthly column, PDF in the Wild, the implementations are beginning to support TDM rep protocol in PDF, which is essentially a metadata flag that indicates your legal statement that you do not want this PDF file to be ingested by AI, or that you have a specific policy, and here's the link. And so the software can go read that link and then decide if it's legitimate to go ahead and ingest that PDF. So this is a kind of capability that people are really looking for. They want to control their content. They don't necessarily want AIs to ingest it. Whether or not this prohibits such ingestion isn't the point of TDM rep. It's whether or not there's a legal claim against those.
Say, hey, I put it there. You
put it there. You ignored it. Therefore, you're liable. Yeah.
Right.
I did write an article last year that went into some detail on how we believe AIs could be put to use in terms of improving how PDF files are created. Yeah. So accessibility is a great example of that, right? We would imagine seeing software that would assist the author in analyzing their content and saying, hey, did you mean a heading there? We already see some of this when you start typing something that looks like a list in Microsoft Word, or other editors too, that starts to provide a bulleted list for it to take that example. Or you start putting in the numbers at the beginning of the paragraph, it thinks, oh, you're making an ordered list. So those are little assistants that, AIs could go, of course, far beyond that to examine your whole document, notice perhaps flaws in how it's structured, and then set you up in a way where what you produced at the end was a totally accessible PDF file. That would be a great use, I think.
Yeah.
But there are a variety of possibilities for creating content where the AI is relatively incidental to the fact of the PDF, because the PDF has these facilities to carry data along with the document. So there'd be opportunities for AI products or results, that would be associated with a particular document in a location in that document. You can include 3D models and other types of content in PDF files. Whether or not AI related, there are so many possibilities for rich content that are mostly limited by the viewing software. And so that's sort of one of the major factors. We see lots more of investment going on there too.
Yeah. So is that, in terms of the working body, the standards, what are the big rocks that you guys are trying to break right now? I mean, is it sort of AI focused right now, or, what are the big questions or challenges that you're trying to answer in PDF right now?
There are several major evolutions on the way. The PDF Technical Working Group has approved the development of a specification for PDF, including Brotli compression, which is actually developed for the web, but is shown to have good results in helping to compress PDF content.
That's one of the big criticisms of PDF in an archiving perspective. It's just, it takes up too much space, right? Is that to some degree, am I stating that correctly?
It certainly has been a criticism. It's been less of a criticism over time, and the space that PDF files take up isn't especially large given what it's containing. Nonetheless, there is clearly, as Brotli has demonstrated, there's room for, certainly in particular cases, significant improvements in compression of PDF files. That's one upcoming change. I think probably one of the changes that is very significant and still requires a great deal of development work is HDR images. So right now, PDF is fundamentally an SDR format. It does not support yet images that use high dynamic range, which is, let's say, extreme whiter whites and blacker blacks is one sort of simplified way of putting HDR. And of course, there's a lot of interest from users who can now shoot an HDR image on their camera phone, but they can't include that HDR image in a PDF. It has to become an SDR image before it goes into a PDF. So there's a significant amount of pressure building to address this. It's a great deal of complex work. PDF has a lot of imaging facilities in it, a transparency model. It's a complicated and profoundly complicated subject, how to integrate HDR into the world of PDF. But it is one that we are engaged with. That we in 2023, we kicked off in a public symposium in San Francisco. We launched the initiative to include HDR in PDF. We have a working group, the imaging model working group, dedicated to that, ongoing efforts in that regard. But it's still, in some ways, we're waiting on the rest of the world, which is still talking about and determining where it's going in terms of HDR. We're probably not for PDF going to want to be picking an HDR solution that the rest of the world has decided not to pick, for example. I think I would mostly just emphasize that PDF is here to stay. I mean, it addresses a bunch of important cases that web technology fundamentally doesn't. Okay, web tech is about creating experiences. It brings together disparate resources at a moment in time to provide you with this look, this feel, this content in this way. A database entry changes over here, some CSS tweaks over there. You reload the page, you get something different, and that's great. That is as designed. We love it. The whole world's going nuts for that. None of those things being true change the fact that a stable, shareable digital document format that provides the facility of being able to remove content without destroying the rest of the content, or to add a note, or to file with other content, to bundle in some way, to use in an offline fashion, to use unpredictably, to rely on into the future as an object that you can possess, and to share with specific others, to encrypt it, to digitally sign it. There's so many uses for PDF that you could probably put them under the rubric of offline. I don't think anybody is in a position, really, relatively few organizations are positioned to say none of those things are going to matter to this class of content going forward.
Yeah, that's very appropriate and enlightening perspective. I mean, my world is all interactive. It's all real time. It's right now, give me what I want when I want it, as opposed to your point of, well, yeah, but that document you might need to pull out 5 years from now to prove X, Y, or Z. You better hope it's in a PDF file, right?
You better hope that you weren't relying upon some combination of states in a database that you needed software, that you needed credentials to access, except that you weren't around for that. And you need to understand, you need to have some sort of stable assets somewhere that are, and documents are one of those things that seem relatively important in a continuing basis. And there are, of course, fantastic reasons not to use PDF, and people overuse PDF in many cases. None of that diminishes the fact that PDF continues to have real world applications that other technologies no longer attempt to match. And that's just fine. I
Yeah.
mean,
So, first of all, it's great to catch up.
yeah, good to
It's
see
crazy to
you.
think how this thing has evolved. I still have a box of Acrobat 1.0 for DOS sitting on my shelf back here.
Seriously?
I think it was two
Probably worth
floppy
money.
disks, maybe three floppy disks. I can't remember. I don't know if
I
that
know a
that
museum that wants that.
no, I've got it. And I want to thank you for you and the PDF organization and all the people I know are working really hard around the world to maintain this standard. And I think, as you described, it's incredibly important that you do. How can people get involved or find out more, or where can they go to learn more about what it is your organization does?
Yeah. Visit pdfa.org to learn more about the PDF Association. All of our contact information is on the site. It's easy to get in touch with us. We are very interested in hearing from anybody who's a stakeholder in PDF in any way, shape, or form with their opinions, their thoughts, and particularly if they want to get engaged and start helping to answer questions about PDF or address PDF in some vertical application focus, or simply work on advancing standard or improving common understanding. We have a lot of initiatives for people to get involved with.
Fantastic. Thank you, Duff. I appreciate it.
Thank you.